Hello, everyone, and welcome back to another episode of 2000's Represent. Still in the middle of this cycle of 2008, talking about a movie. And this episode, we're talking about Tropic Thunder. It's a classic comedy. Haven't watched this for a while. Watched it recently for this video on Paramount Plus. I saw it back when it came out in 2008, and it's a hilarious film. Probably would be considered problematic now for a multitude of reasons. But back when it came out, quite hilarious. Still hilarious to this day, I think. Still kind of holds up. Probably a movie you wouldn't really be able to make today without changing a whole lot. Particularly, Robert Downey Jr.'s character would probably not be a thing you could pull off now. It actually, I was kind of surprised when it came out that it worked for what they were doing, and he ended up getting, I believe, a Academy Award nomination for Best Supporting Actor in the following award season. And Robert Downey Jr. is great in the film. All the actors are really good. So it's got obviously Ben Stiller, Jack Black, Robert Downey Jr., Danny McBride is in this, Nick Nolte, of course, Tom Cruise, as we all know, is Les Grossman, Matthew McConaughey, and so on. But yeah, it's just a great comedy. It's like I said, they probably wouldn't be able to make this movie now. But we're going to jump into my notes here. I got the notebook right here. We're going to get through those notes, and then we'll get to our plot, like we always do on these movie episodes. Just pull my notebook open here. All right, so we got Tropic Thunder, first released August 13th, 2008. Like I said, just a great satire of filmmaking, actors, and kind of like their egos, things like that. And then, of course, it's one of, I think I've discussed this on this channel, on other, maybe another series, about one of my favorite subgenres of film is movies about making movies, and this falls into that category because they're basically making a war film initially, and then it becomes they basically get stuck in an actual kind of war zone, and then it becomes them making a movie about making a fake war movie. I forget exactly what at the end of the movie once Ben Stiller's character wins the Academy Award for acting. It's kind of like they call it Tropic Blunder, the fake story about the real story behind a fake war movie or something like that. So it's a very good satire of that kind of just films in general, war films, and also just the egotistical nature of actors. We got that. At the beginning of the movie, I forgot that these were in there. It's just been a while since I've seen it. But they have 3 fake trailers for the 3 lead actors. So it starts off with Ben Stiller's character of Scorcher, and they're on their 6th version of that movie, and they all look exactly the same, kind of parodying probably generic action films, maybe even parodying superhero films, because those were kind of forward thinking in that way, because the comic book genre, was really going into full swing around the time period of this movie, because this is what it would have been the same year as the first Iron Man film. It would have been the same year as The Dark Knight. And then it looks like, yeah, obviously, they're now on their 6th version of this Scorcher film, and they all look the same, except for the 6th one is about ice or something. I don't know. And then Jack Black's character is basically kind of pulling, I think, an Eddie Murphy in The Nutty Professor, where Eddie Murphy's playing different characters. Jack Black, I think it's just called The Fatties, and they're on their 2nd or 3rd sequel for those. And Jack Black is playing all the different characters of this family in this trailer. And then you have Robert Downey Jr.'s trailer, and he's playing basically a gay monk, I think. And it's a very somewhat serious trailer. The Ben Stiller trailers are like action films. The Jack Black's trailer is a comedy, And then Robert Downey Jr.'s is kind of a drama where it's got a cameo from Tobey Maguire. And those are all in the beginning of the film before it actually jumps into the DreamWorks credits. So three very well made fake trailers leading into the film. So those are a lot of fun. Robert Downey Jr. Basically, obviously, doing blackface in this film, something you would probably not be able to pull off now. But it was kind of it worked because it was satirical. It was kind of a joke on just like the joke was on the character. The character kind of was the joke, and it wasn't really doing a caricature of like the like kind of like how blackface is portrayed normally. So it ended up working out, and it ended up, I think Ben Stiller said he screened it for like the NAACP, and they actually praised the role. Like I mentioned earlier in the video, Robert Downey Jr. got an Academy Award nomination for the movie. This basically he plays an Australian actor who has undergone what they call in the movie a skin pigmentation surgery to look the way he does, and then he is such a method actor, the character that he's playing, that he's like, well, I don't get out of character until after the DVD commentary is done. So even when they know they're no longer making a movie within the movie, he is still sticking to the character that he's playing. So yeah, let me actually bring up the list of stuff that I was looking at here about that. Yeah, so it was basically satirical. The joke was on the character. It wasn't your traditional kind of caricature of it, and kind of the intent of what they were going for worked. I don't like obviously I don't think they could do this now. I think there was even an interview where Robert Downey Jr. like said like this would not work in like today's climate at all, but it happened to work in 2008. And let's see here. I got some quotes here from Robert Downey Jr. I think also Ben Stiller as well about this role. So Robert Downey Jr. said it worked because they were basically going quote up to the nature of the insane self-involved hypocrisy of artists, like how kind of like how like self-absorbed certain actors are, things like that. Another quote from Robert Downey Jr. says, quote, at the end of the day, it's always about how well you commit to the character. If I didn't feel it was morally sound, or that it would be easily misinterpreted, that I'm just C. Thomas Howell in Soul Man, I would have stayed home. And then Brandon Jackson, another actor from the film, I think he plays the Al Pacino character, or Al Pacino, however you pronounce it. And his quote is, quote, when I first read the script, I was like, what? Blackface? But when I saw him act, he like became a black man. It was just good acting. It was weird on the set because he would keep going with the character. He's a method actor. And then Ben Stiller, quote about that as well, says, quote, when people see the movie in the context of the film, he's playing a method actor who's gone to great lengths to play a black guy. The movie is skewering actors and how they take themselves so seriously. So kind of like all the actors, actors within the film are taking themselves very, very seriously. I think there's only a couple characters that don't really. He takes himself incredibly seriously. Ben Stiller's character is trying to like take his Tug Speedman is trying to take what he's doing seriously as well, and it just ends up all kind of working out. Like Robert Downey Jr. is great in this, and this was kind of I think he did like I think it was like 3 years before this was Kiss Kiss Bang Bang, but this was kind of right when he was really like blowing up, so to speak. Like he did Iron Man the same year, did Tropic Thunder. I think like the next year was the first of the Guy Ritchie Sherlock Holmes films, and then kind of obviously more of the Marvel stuff after that. And yeah, and he was just kind of like blowing up at the time. So it's kind of a nice little like snapshot of history as far as that goes. And then Robert Downey Jr. said he kind of based the character of Kirk Lazarus on 3 actors. Those were Russell Crowe, Daniel Day-Lewis, and Colin Farrell. You can kind of see the Russell Crowe aspect because he Russell Crowe's Australian, and he makes the character Australian. Daniel Day-Lewis with how he's kind of known for. I think there was an interview I remember seeing years ago when they did Lincoln, and Daniel Day-Lewis was saying like he wanted to be referred to as Abraham Lincoln or President Lincoln on the set of that film, even when like they weren't filming. Daniel Day-Lewis, obviously, just like one of the greatest method actors of all time, and then kind of also based some of it on Colin Farrell. So you can kind of see like the Kirk Lazarus like actual character is kind of probably like a hybrid of Russell Crowe and Colin Farrell, and the method acting kind of style that he employs is obviously inspired by Daniel Day-Lewis. Can't talk about the movie without talking about Tom Cruise. Tom Cruise is fantastic in this. I think the first time I saw it, I didn't get that it was Tom Cruise until like the second scene he was in, because he shows up in the beginning of the film over like the satellite phone call or video call, and then you see him talking to Bill Hader and Matthew McConaughey in his office later, and then when he blows up against like Flaming Dragon, I'm like, oh, that's definitely Tom Cruise. I think they actually kept his role secret. They didn't reveal that he was actually in the film until like after it was already out. So I think like the studio, and I think that they kind of wanted that to be a surprise. I think I was reading somewhere that Tom Cruise was initially supposed to play Tug Speedman's agent, which eventually went to Matthew McConaughey. And Tom Cruise had the idea of having his character be like one of the like studio executives, and that's kind of where the Les Grossman character came from. And then obviously the great like viral dance. I don't know if it was viral because TikTok wasn't a thing back then, but the dance kind of like when he's dancing around. When they're like talking about potentially letting Tug Speedman just die in the jungle and getting an insurance payout, and then at the end of the film, after Tropic Thunder has won a bunch of awards and he's dancing, just a great scene. And Tom Cruise has said, I believe, he is very serious or wants to do another movie with this character. I would actually love to see that because Tom Cruise is one of the highlights of the film, in my opinion. One thing I noticed, which I thought was kind of funny, I didn't notice the first time I saw it. But at the beginning of the film, when Les Grossman wants, I think, the director to get punched in the face, he's like, who's the key grip? And the key grip's like, that's me. He's like, go punch that guy in the face. And he does, and that's because apparently the key grips are probably the strongest people on a film set, because they're, like rigging a lot of lights. They're like doing a lot of just manual labor, so they're probably going to be the strongest people there, and they're probably going to have the strongest punch. Because he's basically like, get your control of your actors or I'll like mess you up or whatever it was. So let me see here. Oh, so another thing I found out during this is Ben Stiller. I haven't seen. I think it's called Empire of the Sun. I haven't seen that. He's in it. Christian Bale's in it. When he was in that movie, that's when he started developing the idea for Tropic Thunder as a way to kind of mock the quote self-important and self-involved actors, and that's a key part of Tropic Thunder. Is kind of the they're all kind of like prima donna actors, basically. And even Nick Nolte's character is like, if you really want to get a good performance out of them, you've got to throw them in some actual trouble. So that is the background on the film. It's like an absolutely, in my opinion, a classic comedy. But now we're going to jump into the plot of this film. So it starts off with those three trailers I mentioned earlier. We won't reiterate what those are. It opens up with our first major war scene. Like there's a bunch of like fighting, explosions going on, things like that. Danny McBride plays like the person that's in charge of the explosives. He's great. I kind of like hadn't seen this in a while, so I kind of forgot about his character. But yeah, he's incredible in it. They have a scene where Tug Speedman, who's playing Four-Leaf Tayback, I believe is the character's name, is running to the helicopter, gets shot, and it's very much a parody of, I think it was Willem Dafoe in Platoon, when he's doing the whole, like, got his arm stretched out and is, like, on his knees getting blasted. They kind of parody that. I think, like, Osiris, or I forget what the full name of the character is, but Robert Downey Jr.'s character runs out to try to rescue Ben Stiller's character, and a grenade gets thrown at the helicopter, and it gets and Tug Speedman is able to like deflect it with his hands. His hands get blown off. He's just got like stumps, and that's supposed to be how Four Leaf got the kind of stumpy, his like mechanical arms or whatever you want to call them. And then they're doing a scene where they're trying to get Ben Stiller's character to cry. They can't do it. They have so they're like, you gotta like keep rolling, keep rolling. He's like, hey, can we cut? He's like, I can't cry. He's like, this guy's like crying all over me. What's going on? And there's a miscommunication. They blow this. I think they said it was like a $4 million explosion in the movie. This huge explosion, like these like napalm strike happens, blows a bunch of stuff up, and I don't think the camera was even rolling. So there's like I think it's Access Hollywood is doing a report on this, how like the film has only been filming for like 5 days and it's already a month behind schedule. That's when they have the huge, sorry, excuse me, the huge meeting where Lex Grossman is introduced, and he's like, "Who's the key grip?" He's like, "Punch that guy in the face." He's like, "You better get control of your actors, cause like, he's like, I'm gonna be like watching you. Get control of your actors, like make sure stuff like goes on." Four Leaf is there, and Four Leaf is like, if you want to get a good performance out of them, you got to drop them in the real shit. You got to put them in danger. And they then agree. He's like hanging out with or the Cockburn is the director, and he's hanging out with Four Leaf after that meeting, and he's like, hey, we should like drop them into the jungle, set up a bunch of cameras, and just kind of go wild. He's like, okay, we could totally film a guerrilla style, have it be all gritty. And so that's what they do. They basically take the main actors, drop them in, put them in a helicopter, drop them in the jungle, and he's like takes all their cell phones, pours water on them. I think Ben Stiller's character like still has a satellite phone that he's like hidden, but yeah, they're basically, he's like, hey, we're gonna film this movie. He's like, here's the scene book, here's a map, like let's just like film this. And then the director steps on a landmine, gets blown up. They think it's all, or like Speedman thinks it's all part of the thing to kind of scare them and get them like into like the proper headspace to make the movie. But no, they're actually stuck in the jungle in an actual hostile kind of like environment. So I think they eventually do figure out that they are basically kind of in the real world situation going on. There's a part where I forget Jay Baruchel's character's name, but Robert Downey Jr. is talking to him. He's like, hey, like Speedman's leading us in the wrong direction. He's like, I need you to be able to get the map so if you can read a map, we can follow it out of here. And then Stiller does the same thing to Baruchel, where he thinks RDJ is crazy. Another thing to lead in with is there's a whole part where Ben Stiller's character had previously done a box office flop called Simple Jack. Simple Jack, I can't really talk too much about it on this channel. It's kind of very problematic. But there's a whole scene where he's like, you committed too much to the role. He's like, look at these other actors that had similar roles. They were more nuanced than yours. And he's like, if you want to like see why you don't do the thing you did, he's like, look at Sean Penn in, I think it's like I Am Sam. He's like, he did that and didn't win any awards. So they're talking. They get to a river, and then Ben Stiller's character kind of just goes off on his own, and the rest of the group kind of goes the other way. During this process, he is talking to Matthew McConaughey about, he's like, hey, like, he's like, I don't have my TiVo. He's like, what? They didn't give you a TiVo? Like, what's going on here? So like he goes to eventually talk to Les Grossman about getting a TiVo. Ben Stiller's character gets captured by Flaming Dragon. So he gets captured and gets brought to this, I think it's like a drug processing place in the jungle. And then, but they eventually realize that they're dealing with the actor that played Simple Jack. So we're like, hey, we love Simple Jack. That's our favorite movie. He's like, we don't have a whole lot of like stuff here to watch, but this is our favorite movie, and you're going to reenact this movie like anytime we want it, or we'll kill your character. So eventually, McConaughey's character, or they find, like Flaming Dragon finds the satellite phone, and they call McConaughey's character with demands. They're like, hey, we have Simple Jack, we want $50 million, or we kill this person, or whatever it is. And that's when Lex Grossman gets involved. He's like, well, Flaming Dragon, he's like, don't try this Pan-Pacific power play on me. He's like, I'll come in and rain in an ungodly firestorm on you. He's like, you're going to need a UN binding resolution to get me out of there. And that's when I realized the first time I saw that it was Tom Cruise, because the way he just like, and you know when Tom Cruise yells at somebody, that you can definitely tell it's Tom Cruise yelling at someone. So they do that, and then eventually they up the ransom. Now it's $100 million. And Tom Cruise's character is just like, cool, like, you know what? Like, let him die. We'll cash in an insurance claim. We'll make more money off the insurance than we will have lost from the production of this movie. So we're actually coming out ahead. And he then essentially tries to bribe McConaughey's character. He's like, hey, he's like you can get a G5 and a lot of money if you just like go along with this. And at one point, they look like they're kind of hinting that McConaughey is leaning that direction. I think he does get the G5, but he does use it to rescue them later in the film. Eventually, they do track the rest of the actors track Flaming Dragon to their like hideout or whatever it is. Jack Black's character is like needing drugs. He's like, hey, there's a bunch of drugs there. You need to tie me to a tree. And if I say I'm good, like, don't listen to me. So they tie him to a tree, and then they come up with a plan to rescue Speedman. Also, Four Leaf and Danny McBride's character get captured, and it's revealed that Tayback actually doesn't actually has arms. So his whole thing was fake, basically like stolen valor. And he's like, well, I was in the Coast Guard and sanitation. He's like I never left the country. So his whole story is fake, basically. And they get captured as well. They get captured a little bit earlier in the movie because they actually find where the explosions in the jungle happened and that the director got blown up. So Flaming Dragon has them. They mount a rescue where they basically take a water buffalo. They strap Jack Black to it. And Robert Downey Jr. is like, hey, I found this guy in my rice paddy earlier. And then he's like, I was in my poppy field. And the main guy who runs Flaming Dragon is like, I thought you said it was a rice paddy. He's like, oh, I meant it was this. And then eventually he's just like, he's like, where's your farm, American? And then there's a whole shootout. And he's like, my farm, here's my farm. And he pulls out two like M16s. And he's like, I'm a lead farmer, playa. That's what he says. And or something like that. I will say something a little bit worse than that. But a whole firefight ensues. Everybody gets rescued. They rig a bridge to explode when they're leaving. Ben Stiller's character he's kind of brainwashed at this point. So he's like, I'm gonna go back. Like you guys go ahead. I'm gonna go back. And he goes back to the Flaming Dragon. Sorry, excuse me. And then realizes they actually are not chasing him. He's like, no, like rescue me. So they blow the bridge. They escape Flaming Dragon, and then they have the award show where Kirk Lazarus as without the makeup. He yanks the makeup off like partly during the rescue because he really doesn't know who he is. It's kind of the whole part of the satire of that character. And then they have an award show. It's funny, like John Voight apparently is his character, or has a cameo and he's up for an award, but Tug Speedman wins and you see John Voight's all upset about it. And Kirk Lazarus, the whole parody film, he's like won Best Actor 5 times or something. But they do the thing, and he's like, and the Oscar goes to, he like looks at the note, he's like, yes, he's like Tug Speedman, and Tug Speedman gets an Oscar. And then final bit of the film is Bill Hader's character and Lex Grossman are talking, and he's like, oh, I couldn't do it without you, man. He's like, oh, you really mean that? Thank you. He's like, no, a nutless monkey could do your job. And they're kind of laughing that they're joking. And he's like, no, but seriously, a nutless monkey could do your job. And then he does like an iconic Lex Grossman dance, and then the film ends. But yeah, just a great kind of satire of war films, a satire of like the movie making process. I've said before, like one of my favorite subgenres is movies about making movies, and this falls into that. It's just a great comedy. Definitely more of a product of its time. Like I don't think you could get away with this film now, especially the stuff with Robert Downey Jr. and the whole thing with Simple Jack. Definitely politically incorrect stuff probably now to put it into a film. But it worked at the time. But it's, like I said, definitely a product of its time. But still a very, very funny movie. I would still recommend checking it out. But that is going to do it for this video. We'll be back in a week with a video game from 2008 before jumping into 2009. So remember to like, comment, share, and subscribe. We'll see you again next time. Thanks again for watching. Take care and have a good one.